It's time for the Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast.
On this edition of the Kirby on Sports Podcast, we touch on the Washington football team's big win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Titans beating the Saints, plus a preview of the Carlos Bowl. All that and so much more. All coming your way next on the Kirby on Sports Podcast.
Shout out Q. Shout out Q.
Oh, indeed. I'm glad you connected. This is Dave Johnson, voice of the Washington Wizards. You have connected to the right place because you are listening to my man, Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast.
Coming to you from the Trumbull Insurance Agency virtual studio, this is another edition of the Kirby on Sports Podcast. Turn your stress and anxiety into peace and security with Trumbull Insurance. Contact Patrick Bankemper for all your insurance needs. 540-532-0622. For the rest of our sponsors, Regroup Building Services, PM Plus Reserve, Shenandoah Primitives, Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, and Mark Francis with Icon Real Estate. Oh, man, it's another week of the Kirby on Sports Podcast. I'm back with the three-man booth, the weapon Dan Dembski, the Swiss Army knife, Carlos Martinez.
There it is.
Yes, gentlemen, how are we?
Cutter.
It's great to see you all.
Well, it's not a box cutter. It's an actual knife.
I'm just kidding.
I found it, boys. I found it.
I
lost
that's
it
pretty
and
cool.
I found it.
No, that thing's pretty cool, though, for real.
Yeah. Well, it's
Doing
good
well.
It's good to see y'all. It seems like forever since the last time we all recorded as a bunch.
I was about to say, Kirby, we saw
Yeah,
each
I
other
mean, it's been
today.
2 weeks since we were all together.
Yeah, I mean, it just sucks because Carlos, I mean, Virginia weather's just so bipolar, you know?
What?
You know?
Can we just move on, please?
What?
Try to
guess
land the joke. And it was
I guess you didn't get the joke. I tried to land the
No.
joke, but it failed epically.
I don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
Carlos and I are here to tell the jokes, Kirby. You're just the host.
All right. Well, we'll stick with that.
I'm just kidding you.
Yeah, hey, we have some NFL to get to. Some exciting games, some not so exciting games. We'll give you all the scores and stuff, but we have decided to start it off with a game I attended, a game I thought that this Washington football team would lose. And they end up coming out and dethroning the GOAT, Tom Brady.
They didn't dethrone.
Dethrone
They
is a
didn't
strong
dethrone
word.
anything, Kirby. Jesus, they had already lost twice before they even played you guys.
I'm
Stop
just
trying to set the narrative up. Like, they were an
Dethroned.
undefeated team. Nobody could stop them. They looked unstoppable. They had already
Dethroning is
lost
beating them in the
twice.
playoffs. Yeah, dethroning is beating them in the playoffs.
Well,
in
I
the
mean,
Super Bowl.
now,
That's-
I mean, just to
Regular
see
season
it,
win is not a dethrone. Just
This-
so we're
Anybody.
clear.
It was incredible. Hold on, I got to get on my very special product to
here we
recap
go.
this game
Oh,
right
yes,
here.
yes.
Here we
yes.
go.
Yeah.
So, the story behind these, I told Carlos this,
Kirby,
but I did not tell
Kirby, Dan. This is definitely a clip, by the way.
Dan.
This right here is
I'm
definitely a
telling
clip.
you what, this is a classic because we're at the stadium and there's this Pit Viper van, and I'm like, what the heck is Pit Viper doing here? And I'm
Oh,
like,
I know what Pit Viper is.
yeah,
but
and
yeah,
I've always
do it.
wanted a pair of Pit Vipers. You stand in line, give your phone number and your email address, and you get a free pair of Pit Vipers. And
Sounds good.
it was incredible. So I'm like, hey, I'm starting a pair of Pit Vipers. And what a better way to celebrate victory for the Washington football team by wearing a pair of these Pit Vipers, you know?
Wow.
Oh, man. But, I mean,
Taunting, 15-yard penalty.
Oh, geez, don't go there.
Come on. Act
on.
like you've been there before, Kirby. I know your team
Dan,
isn't usually
Dan,
there.
That's what I was about to say, Dan. His team is never. This is the first time they've won
You're
in
right.
weeks. We are
You're right.
fortunate. We have teams who are consistent winners.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm a little.
you know, like
annoyed.
my team was bad last year, and I don't even act this way, despite the fact that we're actually good this year.
Good point.
But, hey, gentlemen, I mean, I'm not sure how much you watched on this game, but I mean, starting off
I had it
off
on, but
with
Dallas
with
was
the
good.
experience. It was a pretty good experience. I had lower bowl seats. I was blessed to see some pretty good action. And what I could see, I mean, the defense just looked very sharp.
They were sharp.
If you know what
They
I
were
mean.
sharp.
And I'm not sure if the defense attributed enough pressure to force that one interception from Tom Brady, because I know the other one went off a receiver's hands.
Yeah.
But 2 early turnovers for Tom Brady, it was a huge factor in why this Washington football team came away with the victory. Because I know it was early, but still, I was still thinking, oh man, this is great, sharing in my seat for 2 turnovers Tom Brady had. I'm like,
You didn't. Now during those turnovers, you didn't get all aggressive and start punching the guy you went to the game with, right?
no.
Has like a welt on his
No.
arm still.
No, so in the back of my
I
brain,
laid the smackdown on that one when you freaking hit me. I was like, oh no, I'm not doing this.
in the back of my mind, I'm like, it's Tom Brady. It's not over. I mean, I was excited. Yes,
Pretty much.
it was
Yeah, pretty much.
electrifying, but in the back of my mind, Tom Brady was still
Tom
the
Brady.
starting quarterback.
He's the GOAT.
Because
Come on.
because you get him coming off a loss to New Orleans and a
Mhm.
bye.
Mhm.
How bad do you think he wants to win this week?
Oh.
That game? How bad?
As far as regular season, there's not a more important game for Tom Brady than
Yeah, I mean,
after a loss
absolutely.
and after a bye. Like,
I
those are
mean,
the two things.
So looking at this defense, I think they played tremendously well.
Yeah, it
and-
looked like old school. The last year's defense kind of went
Yeah,
showed up for
and-
once.
Yeah,
was-
well, and
good to
I'll
see.
be talking with Mitch Tischler from NBC Sports Washington later on, and we'll recap more about this game. But I mean, the defense looked sharp. Taylor Heineke just let it loose. I feel like that attributed to Scott Turner, the Washington offensive coordinator, letting him be more free and not containing him in the pocket. Because I feel like in weeks past, that was an issue, boys. And if you just keep a guy like Taylor Heineke limited to the pocket, it's going to be bound that you're going to make mistakes. Because if you roll out, I mean, who knows what could happen, you know? But I mean, watching that game, the offense looked great. The defense looked great. I mean, that turnover, that catch fumble, that was tragic. I was like, oh no. Yep, that's it. And then Tom Brady throws that bomb to Mike Evans. I'm like, there it is. There it is. But
Yeah,
no.
you look for that one play that was the turning point, and it just seemed like the Bucks seemed like they had one, and then Washington's defense just stepped up big time. They get a sack or, somehow get the Bucks out of scoring range. I think that was the key thing for them. Like you said, Kirby, you talked about how good this defense was. They pretty much had pressure on Tom Brady consistently throughout this game, and that's how you beat any NFL quarterback. If you get pressure on him, and I don't care what receivers you have, if you break that pocket down, eventually the quarterback's going to make some mistakes, and even if it is Tom Brady. So that was the key thing. And then another thing before I throw the mic back over to you is, Gibson finally had a decent game. Two rushing touchdowns, not a lot of rushing yards, but they ran it a lot. He carried the ball 24 times. So, the key thing for them is, I think in this game we've answered some more of those questions, or we've answered, how you beat the Bucks. Washington, well, maybe Washington's defense was phenomenal, and really that made it a lot easier on their offense, and they could kind of play loose and free. And I think that's kind of what they did on offense, and they didn't feel as much pressure because they weren't playing from behind. I think I think that was the first time they had led by I forget what the stat was. I think it was the first time they led by more than 7 points all season long, or maybe the first time they had a first quarter lead. It was some sort of odd stat like that, and I was just like, wow, like that speaks volumes to, you know, how far the defense fell from last year to this season before this game. So, and the offense had, playing from behind, it's not going to be as good most of the time. So,
Because
I
if
thought those were-
Washington starts that game behind, they're not coming back.
oh, for
I can
sure.
guarantee you that 110% with Tom Brady. But Washington kept the lead. And I mean, I'll continue from where I was saying the Mike Evans
Yeah, sorry about
touchdown.
that.
No, you're good. But the Mike Evans touchdown, then Washington produces the longest drive in the NFL this season for one day before it was broken by the Rams 49ers Monday Night Football game. But that was the longest drive in team history in like 30 years. And that was my side of the end zone. I saw Antonio Gibson rush it in. It was just amazing to see Washington ice Bruce Arians and the
Finish a
Tampa
game.
Bay Buccaneers
Yeah.
in that fashion. I mean, it was incredible. Like anything you think that Washington could do wrong, I mean, they just played. I mean, I don't really want to say a complete football game, but it looked pretty better than weeks past, if you know what I mean.
Well, and also on that last drive, I mean, it keeps going through my head too. When Washington has third downs, I'm like, well, Brady's going to get the ball back here, and it's Brady. I mean, he's going to go down and give them the lead or tie the game. I can't remember what the score was at this point. It's been several days since this game was played. That's one of the problems with recording these podcasts a little later. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I mean that kept going through my mind. Like Brady's gonna have time, he's gonna get the ball back, and then Washington just kept converting on third down. That was another key thing for them in this game. They were abysmal coming in on third down conversions. Even like third and shorts, third and mediums, they were just terrible. And they pretty much were as good as they could have been in this football game, and that was key for them, especially on that last drive where you said it was, like a 10-minute drive to end the football game. You couldn't draw up a more crucial game sealing touchdown than Washington went on that series.
But as a fan, it was so exciting to see Tom Brady. I caught some of his warm-ups. My goodness, seeing him up close, it was incredible. In my section, I saw a fan with a half Buccaneers, half New England Tom Brady jersey with the 2 Super Bowl patches on it. I thought that was cool. Carlos, I saw a Cowboys fan. He was sitting 2 rows
There's
behind
always
me.
Cowboys fans there.
I
Yeah.
don't know why the hell they go? Why are you wearing a Cowboys jersey at that game? Like, what are we doing? You're in enemy territory. Like,
As long as they don't go to Philly, they'll be fine. If they go to Philly, they'll get kicked and spit on and everything else.
Yes, but still,
I think in Washington,
why-
the fans are quite.
Just go to
tame.
Dallas. Like, what are you doing here?
They don't. They probably don't have the money to go to Dallas. I mean, it's
well,
just
then
so.
just wait until Dallas comes to town.
It's tickets are outrageous when Dallas.
But
comes
my
to
thing is,
town.
why is there a Dallas fan there watching that game when Dallas is playing at the same time against the Falcons?
Now that I agree with that, I think it's stupid, but yeah.
I don't know, but the last thing I'll
The
touch
experience,
on,
I guess.
the last thing I'll touch on before we but
Hey man, nothing
put
better
on-
than a game in person. Sorry, go ahead.
Nothing better than going to FedEx Field and enjoying that.
So
Yeah,
the last
true.
thing I'm gonna touch on before we play my interview with Mitchell Tischler of NBC Sports Washington. The fact that we lost a key player in Chase Young.
Yeah.
It was a tragic injury. I was not looking directly at the play. I saw the replay, and it was non-contact. I knew as soon as he went down it was the ACL. But Chase Young being the I think he's a really big impact in that locker room, and I'm gonna say that because he plays with heart, and they brought the card out for him. He refused the card. He walked in under his own power with his teammates, of course, helping him. Then he comes out with 10 minutes left in the game on crutches to watch Washington win. I mean, Chase Young, he gave a speech in the locker room. I'm not sure what was said, but he gave a very impactful speech from what Mitch told me, and you'll hear more about that on the interview. But I mean, to see a leader like Chase Young go down, I wouldn't be surprised, boys, if the defense starts to play better because they're rallying around Chase Young. Carlos is disagreeing with me.
I don't.
I mean, that could happen too. That Cam Newton might throw up 60, 500 yards against Washington next week.
I think I
could see it happening.
I don't. I see neither options happening.
I think the defensive performance in this game is. I'm not going to say it's a one-game wonder, but it's probably not something you're going to see from this defense just because it's not indicative of what we've seen all season from them, which is they've struggled a lot in all three phases, linebackers, and secondary. So, Chase Young, not just like performance-wise a huge loss, but an emotional leader on that team. Being as young of a player as he is and being the guy who really has become the leader of that locker room because there really isn't anybody. I mean, to be honest, who else would be the leader of that locker room? You know, they're kind of I wouldn't say a band of misfits, but I mean, kind of is that way with a lot of those players. So I think Chase Young has quickly filled that role and did a great job. Obviously last year we saw what he's capable of, but this year hasn't quite been the same. And that's just a horrible thing. And it's, like you said, I think tragic's a good way to describe it, but it's also just like it's sickening too that like especially on like it's like a freak injury like that, it's just but it happens all over the league, and it's really unfortunate that we lose a lot of good players every year to injuries like this, and it definitely sucks for Washington, not just performance wise, but like I said, as an emotional leader as well.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate. I was sad to see him go down. But I mean, this game, it was a great victory for Washington, but I don't really think it means anything moving forward. Yes, it's a confidence booster, but how are they going to continue to try to win? Because, I mean, looking at it now, they have a lot of injuries defensively, tight end position, other stuff like that. Are you going to continue to give Gibson the football, keep running the run first mentality? How are they going to keep Taylor Heineke? There are a lot of factors. So, the group message, I like to go off and be like, oh yeah, we're going to the Super Bowl.
You were just being
insufferable.
You were just being annoying as hell. Honestly,
it's understandable though.
No, it's not. It's not. Because, just because you beat Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, congratulations, but you don't have to keep – the problem is you kept going.
Kept bringing it, yeah.
Oh, by the way, in case you guys missed it, we beat the Buccaneers. That happened 5 hours ago, Kirby. Who cares? Who cares? It's 5 hours later. You did nothing in the grand scheme of things. Okay, like nothing.
Yeah,
if anything, this is a booster for the Bucs to get better at this point. I mean, this is one of those.
Did you hear what Bruce Arians said?
No, I missed him.
In his press conference, he said something about some reporter asked him about the interceptions and whose fault it was, and he was like, "Yeah, that's on the quarterback."
Straight up, obviously. Before. He's done that. He did that last season. Like, why is it?
Who else are you going to blame?
Surprised.
Well, who else are you supposed to blame?
I mean,
the Breeze.
Yeah. I was just saying I'm surprised he said that with Tom Brady.
Why are you surprised? He's
a good coach. That's
he's called out Brady before. This isn't anything new. He did this last season when they were off to a rough start, when they lost, got completely crushed by the Saints.
He said Brady's got to play better. They literally called him out by name. Brady's got to play better.
Bill Belichick would call him out during whatever, during film sessions. Don't be surprised that coaches call Tom Brady out.
That's what separates great coaches from just like average to good coaches, I think, is like not like making excuses, because you see so many coaches in the NFL do this, and former Virginia Tech head coach Justin Fuente also.
Oof, you've been dying to say that for a while.
Oh man, I wish came true. But no, I wish him all the best. I
Christmas
think
in
he's a good guy.
July.
He's just not a good coach.
Just
some
wait.
people are-
Watch something happen and Justin Fuente ends up in Baltimore. Dan's going to just go irate.
No.
Well, if he's
no,
like
no. Hold on. I know exactly what's going to
quality
happen.
control coach or something.
Urban Meyer's coming to Virginia Tech.
That's such a bad idea. It's such a bad idea. And no, they're looking at the guy from I forget now. There's one of the guys is like the front runner, and he's I forget who it is. I couldn't tell you right now. I'm not. My brain.
Focus, gentlemen. Focus.
All right,
So-
Dan. My last thing.
Sure.
I'd like to get your thoughts on Joey Slye.
I thought he played decent. They've had so many kicking issues. Honestly, anybody who can stand in there and hit 2 of 4 field goals and just hit all the extra points is good enough. At this rate, I like Joey Slye a lot. I always thought he was going to get another chance with the team. I'm glad it's with anybody, but Washington especially. I mean, if you're talking about bad kicking, they've probably had some of the worst kicking in the NFL this season. So, yeah, I think I think it was a good move for them, and definitely like kicking has become more and more important now. And I think this season, especially, we've seen so many kickers struggle, which I just thank God that we have Justin Tucker because, every game I'm reminded of how bad kicking has been this year across the NFL. So, I'm glad to see Joey Slye there, and I hope he continues to do well.
All right, the Washington football team defeats Tampa Bay 29-19 in a game that I attended and got these free pair of pit vipers.
It's
Coming
actually
up
pretty cool.
next.
Hold on, real quick. Are they like legit pit
They're
vipers,
legit.
or are they like?
They're legit.
Okay, so they're not like plastic or anything.
No,
Okay.
they're. I mean, yeah, it's like
Well,
hard
obviously,
shell plastic, but
Yeah.
they feel pretty comfortable.
I got you.
Like
just
you,
curious.
like the things you can adjust to go down and out. It's insane. It's crazy. Like you can go all the way down. It feels comfortable, or like do it in the middle, or do it all the way up. Yeah, they're like so many different combinations, and these sunglasses are pretty nice.
Cool.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was our Pit Viper segment. Please come in next time and we'll talk about Oakleys.
Mitch
After
Tischler,
that,
my interview
Ravens.
with Mitch Tischler, NBC Sports Washington, comes your way right now. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you about Regroup Building Services. If you're looking to get your home remodeled, any part of your home, bathroom, kitchen, want to get a deck built, anything like that, Regroup Building Services can just about do everything. And take it from me, because they came in and they remodeled my family's kitchen, and they do a great job. So if you're looking for any sort of home remodeling needs, deck work done, anything of that nature, reach out to my guy Sean Hibbard over at Regroup Building Services today. You can check them out on their website, www.regroupbuildingservices.com, where they do the honeydews that your honey don't. Make sure you tell them Josh sent you. All right, joining us now to talk more about the Washington football team's victory over Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by a score of 29-19 is NBC Sports Washington's very own, from the Washington Football Talk podcast, one of the best out of the three, Mitchell Tischler, my guy. Mitch, thanks for joining us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. That's a heck of an introduction. One of the best out of the three. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, you all three do amazing work, and you all feed off each other's energy, and I feel like that's why your product is so great in the Washington Football Talk podcast. So keep up the great work, sir. But I mean, we both saw this game live, so I wanted to get you on and get some of your thoughts about what you saw from the game as well. I mean, yeah, starting off with this game, Mitch, I mean, it just did not look right. Tom Brady throwing 2 interceptions early. I mean, with a bye week after a loss from New Orleans, you would think Tom Brady's red hot trying to get that victory.
Yeah, I mean, heading into the game, I kind of thought Tampa was going to dominate Washington. I didn't really give Washington too much of a shot. I've heard about it from everybody. I said that I thought Washington might get shut out. I've never been so happy to be wrong. I think maybe from here on out, I need to predict Washington gets shut out every week just to keep the good mojo going. But it's a game that the Bucks, there wasn't a lot there for the Bucks other than the fact that it was straight out of a bye week. It's kind of one of those games that you can look over. And in the NFL, those games are always the ones that kind of come back to bite you in the butt. But, the Bucks, I thought were going to draw some motivation from the fact that they heard Washington talk all offseason about how they almost beat them in the playoffs last year. They were this close to it. Taylor Heineke made his name off of that game. The Bucks, Bruce Arians talked about how they hadn't prepared for Taylor Heineke. They were looking for Alex Smith in that game. So maybe they would go like a little overboard and really kind of want to prove like, hey, the only reason this guy had success during the playoffs was because we weren't ready for him. And this is the week we're going to prove that, he's not a starting caliber quarterback. But the defense came out and stepped up early on and set the tone. And I loved hearing them talk about feeling disrespected, and Bobby McCain saying that the fact that they won the toss and took the ball kind of motivated him. I loved every bit of that. And I think early on that John Allen hit on Tom Brady really paid dividends as the game went on. I think that that pressure from the inside, especially for a guy like Tom Brady who likes to stand still in the pocket and, is shifty and maneuvery, but isn't a guy who's going to get outside, really kind of set the tone. And I loved seeing the defense play the way that we kind of thought that they were going to play all season.
So I want to circle back to the defense in a little bit, but Mitch, what do you see from Taylor Heineke this week that you didn't really see in past weeks? Because it looked like to me, and I was sitting lower bowl for this game, so I couldn't really see a lot because when they were far down the field, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it looked like Scott Turner let him do more of what he did best and not contain him in the pocket and let him roll out. But I'd like to get your thoughts about what you think Taylor Heineke did better this game than in weeks past.
I think that he did do a good job of getting outside the pocket. It's kind of weird week to week how there are weeks that he seems so dead set on staying in the pocket and making a throw from there without getting to the outside. He did a good job with that against the Bucks. But I think the biggest thing for me looking at Taylor Heineke was the timing. You saw him take a couple 3-step drops, hit the back foot, able to make the throw on time, on target, to a place that only his receiver could get it. I love that third down throw to Adam Humphries late in the game, all the way to the far side of the field. It was opposite hash mark. He took a 3-step drop, hit his back foot, and made the throw. And I think that's where he's gotten himself in trouble weeks past, is that he was kind of slow to diagnose some reads, and he wasn't quick with getting the ball out. You think about that first possession against the Broncos on the 4th and 1. He had Ricky Seals-Jones. If he would have hit his third, hit the last step of his drop, throw the ball to Ricky Seals, he would have had the first down against the Broncos. Took him an extra beat or two to get the ball out there. Ricky Seals gets stopped short. Offense stalls. I think that's kind of those little details are where you can see kind of the difference between when Taylor Heineke's on and playing well and when he's, when he's maybe in his head a little bit or a little bit slow to make some reads. So the fact that he was able to do that against the Bucks was what gave him, what allowed him to have the success that he had.
I'm hearing some chatter, and it's not from me, but I'm hearing a lot of stuff before this game that maybe Taylor isn't the best option moving forward. They might want to put in Kyle Allen. In my opinion, I feel like Taylor Heineke is the best shot for the Washington football team the rest of this season. Do you think there's any controversy whether Taylor should be the starter still or Ron should make a switch? What do you think there?
Certainly not right now. But after that game against the Bucks, I think he kind of solidified a lot of things. Now he go out and play terrible against the Panthers, and it opens the conversation back up again. But I think that this was the first week that Taylor Heineke really had pressure on him from Kyle Allen, where had he come out and played poorly and the offense didn't do much early on in the game, if that had happened, I think there's a good chance they would have gone to Kyle Allen at some point and just for a spark to see if they could get the offense moving a little bit. Because as much as you want to see Taylor Heineke and let him get all that experience and, get used to being in games, because it does seem like he's going to be the backup quarterback here for, at least, next year and maybe moving forward. You also got to give the rest of your guys a chance on offense. And if the quarterback isn't playing well enough, is too slow with his reads, isn't able to get the ball out accurately on time, that creates a problem, not just for, the quarterback himself, not for Taylor Heineke, but for getting everybody in rhythm. Terry McLaurin, DeAndre Carter, J.D. McKissick, everyone on down the line. And I think had he struggled, there was a chance that they would have gone to Kyle Allen this week. But right now, after this Bucs game, Heineke gave himself at least another game plus to figure out if he's gonna if he can be the guy for the rest of the season or not.
Absolutely. So I want to move to running back. I know in past weeks they sort of abandoned the run early, but Antonio Gibson, 24 carries, 64 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It seems like when this team continues to run the football, they end up having some sort of good come out of it.
Yeah, certainly that's the case. And this was a great example of the numbers not really telling the story, because he averaged, what is that? YPC was 2.5 or so per carry. And that's not very good, but you could see that as the game ran on, that it was wearing down that Bucs defense. And obviously you look at that last 10.5 minute drive and you see, where it really pays dividends, but they're able to run the ball. They're able to stick with the run because they didn't fall into a 2 touchdown deficit. And they weren't playing from behind, and they were able to stay in front. So, we hear Ron Rivera talk all the time about complementary football, and there's complementary football, amongst the offensive line, everyone being on the same page, but there's also complementary football between the offense and defense, where the defense was able to get a couple turnovers. And, even though Washington only kicked field goals, the fact that they didn't immediately give up touchdown drives the other way back to Tom Brady allowed them to kind of stick with that game plan, stick with the ball on the ground. And, the best way to slow down Tom Brady is to not allow him to have the football in his hands. And for Washington to dominate time of possession the way they did was nothing short of perfect in terms of, the way you start looking at game plan stuff. I mean, the time possession was 2-1, I believe. And that's something that you gotta tip your cap to Scott Turner. You gotta tip your cap to Jack Del Rio, who's taken a lot of grief this season. He had a great game plan and they executed it well. I think, it's boring to watch a team run the ball 35 times for 90 yards or so. That's like 1950s Big Ten football, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But sometimes that's what you got to do to get a W, and it worked out well on Sunday.
So, Mitch, looking at this tight end position, it seems to be thinning out really quickly with injuries. What do you think this team should do going into weeks in the future with this tight end position?
I think they're kind of trapped a little bit. It seems like that Ricky Seals-Jones injury is going to be something that lingers for a couple of weeks. He had a hip injury from Sunday. Logan Thomas is still dealing with his hamstring. Today is Tuesday. By this time tomorrow, we'll have a much better idea of whether he's able to go or not. But the fact that Washington went out and signed Tamarick Hemingway leads me to believe that that Logan Thomas probably isn't going to be ready. And, just like we were talking about with Taylor Heineke and probably we'll get to with Jamin Davis on the defensive side of the ball, I'm pro get John Bates out there. Let's let him get some experience. Let's let him get some time out there. Obviously, he had the almost near fumble on Sunday that could have been catastrophic, but he's a young player and it's going to take him a little bit of time to get used to the speed, the power, the strength, and everything else that the NFL has to offer. So to me, I want to see John Bates get the lion's share of that, tight end 1 role. And if Tamarick Hemingway and Samus Reyes kind of rotate in behind him a little bit, so be it. But I think it's important, as long as Logan Thomas is out, let's let John Bates get a little experience. Let's let him get used to the NFL world.
Let's shift to defense now. Obviously, a huge blow for this defense with Chase Young tearing his ACL. He was out for the season. Mitch, first and foremost, I mean, the play, it looked like he was barely hit. That's when I knew immediately it was probably an ACL, unfortunately. But I mean, even after him going down, he refused the medical card. He walked in under his own power and help from staff and teammates. And he comes out afterwards to support his team with the victory. I mean, that's a true testament to what a great leader Chase Young can be, Mitch. And I like the quote that I saw earlier today on social media. Chase Young is out for the season with an ACL injury. This is a small setback for a major comeback.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of RG3-esque sayings that are going to be around this Chase Young all in for week 1, whatever ones we want to pull in. But at the end of the day, you said it's a big blow for the defense. I think it's actually a big blow for the team overall. You mentioned the leadership, and I think that kind of goes a long way. Players to a man all talk about how much he brings to the practice field every day with juice and being excited and his energy. He's a guy who's talking trash 24/7. He's a guy that pulls over the offensive lineman, works off to the side with them, during other team drills and stuff like that. I mean, he is a true team leader, and it's definitely going to be a big blow. You can replace his 1.5 sacks. Obviously, the production wasn't there in the first half of the season that you'd love to see from the reigning defensive rookie of the year. But at the same time, you're not going to be able to replace his leadership in the locker room. And you talked about him walking off the field under his own power. He went into the locker room. He met with his family kind of outside the locker room right after that, and what seemed like to be a little bit of an emotional moment for him. But he kind of got himself up together. At halftime, he stood up and gave an impassioned speech to the team. I mean, I think it just goes to show you everything that he is. And there's a lot of bluster and talk about the offseason and what he was doing there and whether that impacted his slow start to the year or whatever. And all that, people have their own takes on it, but at the end of the day, he's a real team leader, and that almost matters as much as actual production on the field in terms of keeping this team together. So it's certainly a loss.
I would imagine he would still stick with the team and keep motivating them throughout the course of this season, right?
It's a little bit of a slippery slope. I would imagine that he's probably going to have surgery in the next week or two or so. Generally, for a straight ACL tear, they wait until the swelling goes down and they'll go do the surgery. So he might be away from the team a little bit. And also for those guys, once they get hurt, they don't want to be a distraction. They don't want to be kind of an extra body around. It'll be interesting to see how he plays it. When he tore it, I immediately thought of Tim Hightower. He's the former running back for Washington. He's actually their alumni coordinator now, so he's in the building and around the team. And in 2009 or 10, I believe, I was actually in Carolina. He tore his ACL on a non-contact run, and 2 days later, he was in the gym lifting and squatting and doing work, and was trying to come back without having surgery on that knee. Ultimately, he ended up having surgery and missed the rest of the season. But for whatever reason, the second that Chase got hurt, that image popped up in my head, because I imagine that Chase is going to attack his rehab with the same ferocity that Tim Hightower did, so many years ago.
I would imagine also. I want to talk about Leonard Fournette. 11 carries, 47 yards. Mitch, I feel like from my point of view for this game, anytime Leonard Fournette got the ball, he was getting gang tackled, 2 or 3 people on him at a time because of how powerful he was. I'd like to know your thoughts on what you saw from the defense swarming around Leonard Fournette and how that helped Washington limit Tampa Bay, limiting Leonard Fournette to only 47 yards. That's pretty big.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette's a little bit of a bowling ball. He's not the most finesse runner that there is, so he is a guy that definitely needs to have a couple people take him down. But that's one of the things that I really like seeing out of the linebackers on Sunday. Jamin Davis and Cole Holcomb, they both did a really good job of holding him up and kind of waiting for other guys to rally to the ball to help get him. And I think that's something that we haven't necessarily seen all year on defense, the gang tackling and the having all 11 guys rally to the ball on defense. And I think that's a real good sign of where this group is and kind of the way that they're going to attack offenses going forward.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, this game was a roller coaster for fans and probably media covering this as well, because Washington, they're keeping a lead pretty much this entire game against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the defending Super Bowl champions. And, you got that Evans touchdown. It's like, oh, that's not good. You have that catch fumble. I can't recall the wide receiver's name, but that hurt as well. But Washington stayed in it. Did you think at any point Tampa Bay could have retook that lead?
The entire game was spent doing the machinations in your head with, Tom Brady's going to step up at some point. He's going to start being Tom Brady. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. And honestly, even after that, Mike Evans touchdown, you're sitting there, you're like, okay, they missed the extra point. So they're down 4. Washington, hopefully they can drive for a field goal. Obviously, any time left on the clock, Tom Brady's going to go down in 2 minutes and score a touchdown, force overtime or something along those lines. But it just kind of felt like Washington's day, even starting early on. You had the first interception by William Jackson III. The ball just kind of pops up in the air off a receiver's hands. You had DeAndre Carter get the long catch over the middle that went off of one of the Bucs DB's hands and popped up in the air, and he kind of came down with it. Then the Bucs missed the extra point, right there close to the end of the game. It felt like kismet. It felt like something that was just everything was going Washington's way. Maybe the ghost of Sam Huff was looking down on the Washington football team and wink and a tip of the cap to them, because every ball that everything that could go right for Washington went right, and everything that could go wrong for Tampa kind of went wrong.
I mean, looking at that last drive for Washington, it was the longest drive in the NFL this season, and the longest in team history since like 30 years or something. Like, can you believe that they held them and iced the game and ended up scoring with Antonio Gibson? I'm not really sure why he took the knee on the 2-point conversion, but yeah, I mean, that was just remarkable to see that drive being the longest in the NFL this season.
Yeah. So that stat, longest in the NFL, lasted for all of one day, because the 49ers went out and did it in the first quarter. They had a 13-minute, 11-play drive or whatever it may be to one-up Washington. But you talked about the knee on the 2-point on the extra point conversion.
Yeah.
And to me, there have been so many complaints and there have been so many things you could second guess Ron and this coaching staff on, in terms of using timeouts and kind of game situation. I love that they went and took a knee, because if you kick the extra point and it gets blocked and returned for 2, all of a sudden the Bucs are only down 8 points. Then you're kicking the ball off to the Bucs, and who knows what can happen, but it all of a sudden becomes a 1-score game. You take a knee there, it's a 10-point game with basically no time left. You kick the ball off, the Bucs need 2 scores, and you can't be caught. So I love the forward thinking that they had gotten to that point where they were, where they decided that they were going to kneel on it. I loved going for it on 4th down and getting that touchdown, kind of, sticking the stake through the Bucs' heart. I love the way that entire last 11 minutes of the game played out. That was incredible to watch. And, I've covered this team for 15 years, obviously, and I've never seen anything like that before. So it was cool to watch. And I love the way that Scott Turner used motion to kind of get the Bucs a little confused. They did a great job of mixing in the run and the pass. Taylor Heineke threw some really great balls. I already talked about the one on the sideline to Adam Humphries. You had the ball right down the middle to Terry McLaurin, on pace, on spot, right where it needs to be, right on time. It was a beautiful, beautiful drive.
Mitch, I'd like to get your thoughts on Joey Salaya.
He's got, there's the coaching staff, the front office has a thing for guys with huge beards. I like him. I think Joey Sly is the same kicker that Dustin Hopkins is, and I don't know whether fans are going to hate to hear that or not. He's a good NFL kicker. He's a reliable NFL kicker. He's not going to be great. He's not going to be terrible. He's not going to be Chris Blewett, but he's the same kind of level of play that you're going to get out of Dustin Hopkins. And I didn't love moving on from Dustin when they decided to move on from him, because the options that were out there aren't that strong. If there was an inkling that they didn't like what Dustin had, because he did have some tough games during the preseason, bring in some of that competition during preseason and see who wins out. But to go from Dustin to Chris Blewett was clearly a huge mistake. And Blewett, there's a reason that he hadn't kicked in the NFL in 5 years. I think Joey Sly is a good kicker. I think, fans are going to love him because you're coming off the heels of Chris Blewett's 3 block kicks and 5 tries. But ultimately, the same frustrations that everybody had with Dustin Hopkins eventually are going to start popping up with Joey Sly. So he's a good professional replacement, and good for them for finding somebody like that they could slot in and have be the consistent kicker.
Last but not least, Mitch, before we let you go, Unfortunately, Sam Huff passed away the day before. I mean, there was a tribute. Any remarks about Sam Huff? I'm not sure if you had any memories or good stories that were told to you about Sam Huff, but I mean, Washington great back in the day. I'd like to get your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think I'll just start kind of big picture just on Sunday with the moment of silence. It was obviously Military Appreciation Day. The whole operation that day was very professional. It was exactly what you want an NFL team to do. They had the military down on the field. You know, they had the nice moment of silence. They had the band at halftime. It was, you know, kind of it was a well done, you know, day of events for multiple different things happening at the same time. Sam Huff, I got to know a little bit over the years just from traveling, you know, with the team and seeing him on the road a little bit. And not that there's any kind of particular stories that stick out to me. I just loved, you know, you'd be down in the lobby of the hotel, and Sonny and Sam would be there, you know, bickering about, you know, whatever topic it was. And so many times it was, you know, these old NFL stories that, you know, you'd never hear, you know, except for two greats sitting there, you know, just kind of shooting the breeze as they hang out. So I always kind of think back to those, like, you know, where you get to kind of be a fly on the wall and, you know, have a nice bourbon while, you know, two legends sit there and tell funny stories from back in the day. But one thing I loved about Sam was that he would he'd always talk about linebackers today and honestly defensive players today, how they'd never survive in his day. You know, they're outside after London Fletcher left. Is, you know, was talking about how guys were so hesitant to put their nose in the middle of the guy's chest and make a tackle. It was just fun listening to those guys, chop it up over the years.
Great stuff. Once again, Washington over Tampa Bay this past Sunday. What a great win for the Washington football team. And next week they face Carolina, and it looks like Cam Newton will probably be starting. That's going to be an interesting storyline, Mitch. Ron Rivera facing not only his former team, the Carolina Panthers, but once again, Cam Newton.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. All week is going to be talking about all the Carolina connections here and down there. I mean, you have Ron, you have you have Scott Turner, you have Joe. There's across the board. It's going to be fun to watch. I think that this is another important game for Washington to come out and play well, because after this you have a pretty tough murderer's row of 3 straight with Seattle, Vegas, and then Dallas. So I think they got to come out and kind of build a little of the momentum, keep the momentum rolling from this past week, and go out and beat up on that Carolina team that's primed for picking.
You can catch Mitchell Tischler on NBC Sports Washington. He does a great job along with JP Finley and Pete Haley. He's also on the Washington Football Talk podcast. Check out him and his work on Twitter at Mitch_Tischler on Twitter. Mitch, greatly appreciate the time, my man.
Absolutely, Josh. Thanks so much for having me.
For sports fans living in condominium and homeowners associations, as well as business professionals, when you need a reserve study, PM Plus Reserves has been in business since 1990. Their studies are accurate and easy to understand. Check them out when your association needs a study. www.pmplusreserves.com. You can also contact them at 703-803-8436. Once again, www.pmplusreserves.com. All right, welcome back. Thank you to Mitchell Tischler of NBC Sports Washington for coming on once again.
Mitch.
Back with the three-man booth, the weapon Dan Dembski, the Swiss Army knife Carlos Martinez. We have one more game we would like to discuss in depth. It is a Titans victory over the New Orleans Saints 23-21. And in this game, I mean, I'd just like to say I was very surprised. I'm not sure. I mean, I didn't really watch much of this game, but I thought Taysom Hill was going to play a little bit more than he did at the
Thank God he
quarterback
didn't.
position. But
No, they're going Trevor Siemian at quarterback.
yeah, so I guess it's Trevor Siemian all the way. He threw 2 touchdowns. I mean, Trevor Siemian.
He played really well.
He's
really did
playing
play well.
exceptionally well for the position he's been put in. For the New Orleans Saints, obviously Jameis Winston out for the season, but I mean, losing by 23-21. I mean, still, I think that's a pretty good performance, putting up 2 touchdowns. The Titans were just a little bit better than what they were in that contest. But I mean, looking at Trevor Siemian, almost 300 yards. I mean, you can't be mad at his performance on this loss.
I don't
Yeah,
think
he
anyone's
looked-
really mad at his performance.
Yeah, he looked pretty crisp. And I also want to shout out Mark Ingram, who became the Saints' all-time leading rusher.
Big trust.
Big trust. Woo woo. He only needed 20 yards. He finished with 47 yards on the day. So
Bring
shout
him back
out,
to
shout out,
Baltimore.
Big Trust. Always will have a special place in my heart for Mark Ingram. But yeah, I mean, like you said, you pretty much summarized it, Kirby. I think Tennessee's just a more talented football team.
Yeah.
On both
At
sides
this
of the
current
ball.
moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, and they're one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. I mean, nobody's been hotter than them in the last 5 to 6 weeks. So, yeah, this was a really entertaining game. Tannehill apparently was battling a stomach illness, and so he didn't look the greatest in this game. He finished with impressive stats, 19-27 with a touchdown, no turnovers. And it was interesting, kind of a running back by committee sort of thing the Titans did, because without Derrick Henry, they don't really have. I mean, let's face it, Adrian Peterson is not really a number 1 back at this stage of his career. It's nice to see him out there and still, contributing, but
I
let's be real.
support Adrian.
Yeah,
I like him.
Oh,
I
you
like
made
him
that
too.
Very clear last week, Kirby. You made that very clear last week.
God.
Yeah.
Foreman
I forgot
was.
Dan wasn't on. I keep forgetting Dan wasn't on last week.
I was not, but but Kirby also made it in the group chat as well. So he usually does. So if you miss something here or there, then you can catch up in the group chat. But yeah, this was a really, I mean, it was a kind of a clean game. Not really much sloppy play, to be honest. So I think that's really what stands out to me, the fact that sorry, there was only 1 turnover and it was a fumble by the Saints, and that was kind of the difference maker in this game. I really don't have a whole lot else to add to this game. I think the Titans are going to struggle, and I think everybody's saying this and everybody believes this. Obviously, without Derrick Henry, they don't have a number 1 back, but not just that. I don't know if they have someone who can. I don't know if they can carry the load of Derrick Henry, because I mean the top 2 rushers only had 51 yards rushing, so you're putting a lot of pressure on Ryan Tannehill to become a quarterback, which he's not accustomed to being, which is a guy who's going to have to throw it, 30, 40, maybe 50 times a game, depending on who the opponent is. So that's going to wear him down eventually. But maybe not. Maybe they can win in this way, and I'll be proven wrong. But yeah, this was a fun game. I think that's all I have. I mean, the Saints, they impressed me with how well they played, especially Trevor Siemian, like I said, to start this whole thing before I started yapping. But yeah, the Saints are an interesting team. We'll see. The NFC is. I don't know. There's more, I guess, up for grabs in the AFC, but the NFC has a couple of those teams as well.
But the
Saints
NFC's top heavy. I mean, we
Yeah.
know who the top 5 teams probably are
True.
going to be. After
Very true.
that, it's really a toss up. So like, there's 2 wild card spots like up for
Who knows?
grabs, and right now the Saints have 1, the Carolina Panthers have the other, which is insane to think about, because Carolina's been like. In disarray, ever since they started 3-0 or whatever it was that they started out. But, with Tennessee, it's just more of, they, like you said, they're the hottest team right now. Right now they're handling the loss of Derrick Henry well. They're still winning games. But ultimately, we know that that's the big part of their offense is Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Obviously, Adrian Peterson was never going to be the guy that was going to be able to bear that same load. And Julio Jones hasn't necessarily lit it up the way we thought he was going to light it up. But, right now, this team is winning. So, they're 8-2. They're the number 1 seed in the AFC. I mean, they're the only team that's really performing well on a consistent basis. Ever since they lost to the Jets, they've been performing pretty well ever since then. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to need a guy like, AJ Brown to step up because the last couple weeks he really hasn't played well, and I think that'll be key for them is get some of these more veteran guys involved and have them step up. I think for the Saints, Trevor Siemian keeps playing well. Obviously Jameis is done for the season. We know that, but it'll be interesting to see going forward. Like if the Saints keep Siemian around, depending on how well he plays and to end up this season, do they have like a quarterback competition next year? Probably not. But Jameis has never really proven himself in this league. I mean, he's had chances, and his eyes were supposed to be fixed, and the first couple weeks.
I mean, he was playing, decent leading up to the injury was unfortunate because it was a horse collar tackle that popped his knee out. So that was unfortunate, and but I mean, it's not as if Jameis was playing terrible. I mean,
he's just you get what you get with him. He's up and down. I mean, that's the most frustrating thing I think if you're a GM or anything like that. Like when you have a quarterback who's just hot, can go from hot and cold. I mean, kind of like good old Ryan Fitzpatrick, same sort of thing. And Ryan Fitzpatrick's made a career out of it. It's just insane. Like 17 years in the league.
Didn't make it at Washington. His hip decided to,
Looks like he's out for the season.
He is out for the season. He's not coming back. Come on.
Yeah.
He's gonna retire
I
anyway.
wouldn't come back.
No, I wouldn't want to come back either. Screw that.
I wouldn't come back. That's that dumpster fire.
on and off the field. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Simeon does because again, he's another guy who has had a couple opportunities and hasn't really proven himself, but he also hasn't played poorly in the chances he's had. I feel like he's somewhere in the middle, so maybe he can turn the corner, maybe not. But I think the Titans they're the hottest team right now in the NFL, but how long can this last without Derrick Henry? I think that's what everybody's asking. We expect that ship to sink at some point. It's just a matter of when.
All right. The Titans 23, the Saints 21. All right. Now we are going to touch on our next segment, previewing the Carlos Martinez Bowl. Dallas.
No, that's not what it's called. It's just the Carlos Bowl.
The Carlos
Bowl.
is
everywhere.
Just the Carlos Bowl.
Just the Carlos Bowl. We'll call it the Carlos Bowl. The Dallas Cowboys versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Carlos, how are you feeling? How are your emotions leading up to this Sunday? I got to get your thoughts here, bud.
My heart is divided because obviously my childhood team, the Dallas Cowboys, are facing the team that I have been having an affair with for the past 2 years, the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know how I feel because I mean I don't know how I'm feeling about this game just because Dallas looked so good, obviously coming off of Atlanta. And so, but Kansas City finally looked like themselves against Las Vegas. So now I'm just like, I don't know. I really don't know what all the emotions I'm going to go through in this game are just going to be very intense, I want to say, because, at one hand, I'm going to be rooting for Dallas, and then on the other hand, I'll be rooting for Kansas City. So I don't know, man. My feelings are all over the place.
I think it might be a very interesting game, to say the least. I mean, the Chiefs with the big win over the Raiders, and Dallas with a full, complete game against Atlanta. This might be a quarterback shootout here, Carlos.
It's very possible that it's going to be a quarterback. It just depends. Like, obviously Dallas's defense is going to be more prepared to face Patrick Mahomes and that offense a lot better than say like Vegas was. Jesus, still so hard to say Vegas. Compared to like what the Raiders were. But at the same time, we've seen our defense can be, or Dallas's defense can be, they can be passed, like they can be run on, they can be passed on, like they'll bend, but they usually don't break unless of course we're playing the Denver Broncos. So like it'll be interesting to see how like Diggs and like the secondary looked very good against Atlanta, but we're facing Matt Ryan in that situation. Now we're facing Patrick Mahomes, who seems like he's got his swagger back. Same thing with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. It seems like they're starting to finally figure it out. Was that a one-off against the Raiders, or is it like the Chiefs are officially back? That is really the question. Like, we know what Dallas is going to bring to the table. We know Dak is going to lead this team offensively with CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and now we got Michael Gallup back. We know Pollard and Elliott are going to, be running it down your throats, and we know Kansas City's defense is not the best. They looked good against the Raiders, but it's a different story with Dallas because of the weapons we have. It's not like the Raiders, obviously given the circumstances that have happened lately, it's not as if the Raiders have all the same weapons that Dallas has. It'll just be interesting. Like, who's going to cover Tyreek Hill? Who's going to be covering? Obviously, I'm pretty sure they're just going to put Micah Parsons on Travis Kelce and try to just neutralize him that way. But for Kansas City, it's going to be who else is going to step up offensively. Yeah. They need a running game. Because that's what really helped them here against the Raiders was a running game. It takes so much pressure off of Patrick Mahomes. But if they can't get a running game going against Dallas, I mean, Diggs is gonna. I can foresee another Diggs interception happening here. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know how I feel. I don't know who I want to. Obviously, I think I want Dallas to win, but I mean, like, I don't want Kansas City to like lose another game and be 6-5 and still fighting to get into the playoffs. I don't know. I don't know how to feel, boys.
Yeah, I think as the sports media landscape, as soon as Kansas City finished that dominant win on Sunday, everybody and their mother was saying Kansas City's back. And, I don't necessarily agree with that. I still think they have a decent amount to prove to me to show that they're back. And this is it. This is the game that, okay, where is Kansas City right now? What kind of team are they really? Are they the same Kansas City we saw last season that just dominated and like we saw just how special they were? Or are they the Kansas City we've seen throughout the season that's just been not the same football team? Mahomes hasn't been the same quarterback. Now his numbers are still really solid, considering how much he's struggled compared to what he has been. But I really think Dallas wins this game. I think by 2 scores. I really do believe that. I just think right now with how Dallas has played, I think the Atlanta game was I think the loss they had where it was terrible.
We got our asses kicked by Denver. Like, let's just put it out there. Like, Denver whooped our butts. It's just and the way we responded is what really impresses me about this team, because it's not as if we just came out and we beat Atlanta, like,
right.
But Atlanta still put up like 27 points. No, we laid the smackdown on Atlanta. Like, they did.
Yep.
Like, after from the second drive, they had nothing. Once they failed on a 4th down conversion, they had nothing for the rest of the game, and it was all Dallas from there.
Yep.
So basically to your point, like, it's just Dallas. Like, I could see that possibility too of a 2-touchdown, whatever, 2-score win. But I could also see a shootout where it's just back and forth, and we know Dallas can play in a shootout. We've seen it. We've already seen it multiple times this season.
Yeah, several games.
So, but I would say I would trust Dallas's defense more to make that one stop than I would Kansas City's defense.
Yep.
So even in a shootout, I would still give the advantage. Now, the bookies have it, Kansas City's favored because it's in Kansas City. So obviously that plays a factor because obviously we know how hard it is to play at Arrowhead. And
Well, the
especially
bookies
with
have been
Cowboys
wrong,
coming into town.
and the bookies have been wrong a ton this season. So I take it for what it's worth.
Agreed.
but no, that's a good point. I think Kansas City playing at home definitely makes a difference. But not as much as it would in the past. I think this season has shown that Kansas City is, if you not really figure them out, but if you kind of have an idea of what they're doing, you can slow them down and stop them. And I mean, they have won 3 straight games. Close win against the Giants, obviously facing an Aaron Rodgers-less Packers team, and then laying the wood to the Raiders. So it looked like old Mahomes because he threw for 400 yards last week. So, I kind of agree. I think it could go either way, but I also think as far as as far as defenses that Mahomes has faced this season, he hasn't faced a defense that's as solid as Dallas has been this year. Now, Dallas has had a couple slip-ups recently, obviously. But the thing that's impresses me about Dallas is just that their defense limits the damage a lot of times. And we all know how great Diggs has been. I mean, when they need a big play, it's almost like they tell him, all right, go get a pick for us right now when things just aren't clicking on offense. So I think that plays a big factor in all this too. But yeah, for me, I think my overarching thought here is Kansas City really back? We all know how good Dallas is. Like I said, I think Dallas is a contender in the NFC. I know Carlos doesn't want to hear that because we know Dallas has been a contender in the past, and when they get to the playoffs,
Don't put that into the ether yet.
The old one and done for Dallas, but
They'll break your heart. Shut up, Kirby. You guys.
different team. This is
You don't get to make sounds over there.
I'm
okay?
just laughing at you two. That's all.
Oh, sure. The Washington fan laughing about playoff.
Don't make me go to that place, Kirby. I will go to that place.
Yeah, you have no right to talk about playoffs. Playoffs. No, I think
7 and 10 ain't gonna cut it this year, Kirby.
I really think this Dallas team is different from all those other teams, and I think one thing they really have is, Dak has been
in the room.
Yes,
competent coaching staff.
Yes, surprisingly, because we thought that was going to be one of Dallas's issues this year was Mike McCarthy.
I mean,
but you know what? He's kind of gotten out of the way. He's not really made it about himself. What we've seen in the past with Dallas is, Jason Garrett and,
well, there you go. I mean, you said it right there. Jason
Garrett
compared to Mike McCarthy. I mean, for all the blunders that Mike McCarthy had last season, he's really you're right. He's really been stepped out of the way in terms of, bringing in Dan Quinn, a guy, who obviously, that's probably the smartest move he ever made, getting rid of whatever. I always ultimately end up forgetting our old defensive coordinator's name because he's irrelevant. He was terrible. Getting rid of, that guy our defense was abysmal, bringing in a guy who was a former head coach, and he basically transformed this defense into what it is now. And trusting in Kellen Moore and his rapport with Dak Prescott, Mike McCarthy's done. I mean, like I said, I understand the hate toward, and trust me, I've spewed it on here also. But we have to give the man some credit because he has this is what he's about. I feel like this season has really become the vision of what Mike McCarthy thought Dallas was going to be. But obviously we don't want to focus too much on Dallas. We also want to focus on Kansas City here. Obviously Kansas City, they haven't had necessarily the best season that we were expecting them to have. We were expecting them to be, the AFC, in the AFC title picture, and they technically still are. They're in first place in the division, but a loss here would really hurt their chances of making the playoffs. So they have a lot to play for because they basically don't have a lot more room for mistakes. Where Dallas, right now we're sitting at the 3rd seed. We I don't necessarily know how hard we're really going to try to win this game because we still have Thanksgiving against the Raiders, and then we have another Thursday game after that. I can't remember who we're playing right now, but we're playing somebody else the next Thursday night. So we have 3 games in 12 days essentially, like we always do.
That's insane. Yeah,
it happens every year. We always have that 3 games in 12 days stretch.
Need a bye week after that.
I don't necessarily know how much importance they're putting on this, because ultimately if we lose to the Chiefs, it's not going to necessarily hurt us in, losing to an AFC team is a lot better than losing to an NFC team.
Exactly.
Because just with playoffs, with the algorithms they use, like AFC losses don't actually matter. But I think also it would be a good barometer or like a good thing to see where are we? Are we able to compete with the Kansas City Chiefs and stuff? Is this team really there? This is our first legitimate test since the Buccaneers. So I digress.
No, I think it's perfectly said. I think it's a barometer for both teams. It's a barometer of where Kansas City is. Are they really back? Are they pretenders or are they contenders? Obviously, like you said, Carlos, 5-4 and in first place in the AFC West, which we all thought 3 weeks ago that was a runaway for the Chargers, that they were just going to take that division and run with it, and they have really struggled recently. And that's opened the door for Kansas City to kind of slide back in with those 3 straight wins that they've had. Are they really for real? This is a big game for that. And then for Dallas, it's kind of a barometer of kind of where they are. Are they going to be the team to beat this year? And I think this game is sort of a gauge of all those things. So it's going to be a fun game. It's good old Troy Aikman and Joe Buck will be on the call, so should be an
I kind of wish it was actually no, I don't wish it was Sunday night considering what
I'm so sick of my team playing primetime games. I hate it. I literally, because I get no sleep, and then I have to watch them play to the Bally to the Dolphins. I'm not going to get into all that. The press
that's fair.
Stuff.
That's a fair assessment. Actually, I'm glad that they're playing that in the afternoon slot.
Yeah,
and It honestly, that game is going to be probably one of the highest rated games of the season.
For sure.
Because, how often does Dallas and Kansas City play? They don't really play that often. So
well, and it's one of the oldest it's not really a rivalry, but it's one of the oldest matchups.
I guess it's a rivalry considering the history of Kansas City, they were the original Dallas team and then they moved over to Kansas City.
True.
And then that opened the door for the Cowboys. So, yeah. There's history there, but it's just not a rivalry that's played very often, obviously. So,
yeah.
I'm excited. Either way, I win, But
it's a good point.
I have a feeling if Dallas loses, I will actually be more bummed than if Kansas City loses.
Yeah.
Just because of the way Dallas affects me, as a because they're Dallas is my actual team, where Kansas City is just a team that I like to root for because I do love watching their style of play. So, yep, it'll be interesting. But my guess is Dallas is probably going to win this, if I had to guess.
I would say I would get to say that Dallas will win as well, probably by a score or 2. But I wouldn't be surprised if this game is close, maybe down to the wire as well. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup. One game that all 3 of us are looking out for next week.
Should we do a live stream?
Maybe so.
That would be very
Stay
interesting.
Tuned for more.
Stay tuned, yes. But that was a preview of the Carlos Bowl. After the break, we will get into the Hurry Up offense. Stay tuned. Is it finally time to upgrade your home's interior? How about with an authentic farm table made locally from recycled barnwood? Shenandoah Primitives, based right here in Winchester, Virginia, makes farm tables, benches, tables, coffee tables, and a long list of other items for your home decorating needs. At Shenandoah Primitives, function and style are combined for great furniture that will last generations. If you're interested in combining the industrial look of metal with wood, or considering something incredibly unique with a live edge, Shenandoah Primitives turns those ideas into reality. Thinking about a mirror, wine rack, or other accent piece for your home, Shenandoah Primitives can assist with that as well. As a local small business, Shenandoah Primitives is happy to work with each client for a custom design or schedule an appointment to come out and view current inventory. Local, high-quality, handmade items can be found at Shenandoah Primitives. Find us on Facebook and Instagram or visit us at www.shenandoahprimitives.com. Once again, that's www.shenandoahprimitives.com.
Hey, sports fans. Thank you for listening to and supporting the Kirby on Sports podcast with founder and host Josh Kirby, along with lead contributor Dan Dembski. Like, subscribe, and give them a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast from. My name is Dr. Dave Miles, founder of Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation. Our company helps leaders build engaged and productive teams. Exclusively for listeners of the Kirby on Sports podcast, you can take an opportunity to discover your primary communication style and learn more about effective communication with others. Text Kirby to 757-903-0743 for your free copy of the Working From Home Communication Assessment, where you'll learn your primary communication style, how to better communicate with others not like you, and tips on working remotely based on your personal communication style. 10 minutes, tons of resources, learn about yourself and your team. Again, text Kirby to 757-903-0743 for your free assessment report today. I'm Dr. Dave Miles, founder of Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, where we help you and your team be more engaged and productive by understanding each other better. Back to you, Josh.
All right, welcome back. Joined by the weapon Dan Dembski and the Swiss Army knife Carlos Martinez. Gentlemen, it is time for the hurry up offense. Are we ready?
Yep.
All right.
Ready, Freddie.
Let's go. Starting off with the Dolphins win over the Baltimore Ravens. I was very shocked.
Sweet.
I was very shocked. I was very surprised. I mean, could it have been the hot in the humidity for the Ravens? I'm not sure, but I will say this. The play of the game was a play that did not count. My guy, Robert Hunt, just...
Oh, your guy. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Apparently he's a Dolphins fan too.
No, he just looked... He accidentally took that screen pass and just ran all the way to the end zone.
It's an illegal play. Can we stop talking about it, please?
It was incredible.
So annoying.
It was incredible. Those are my thoughts on it. It was incredible.
I'm so annoyed by people. Okay, it was an illegal play. I mean,
it was a big man touchdown. That's why it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh, God, it's just like, shut the hell up already. And I'm not just talking to you, Kirby. It's just like, it's in general. It's nonstop on ESPN and Jesus.
That's why I don't watch them.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about this game. The Ravens were just flat. I mean, on offense, they really couldn't do anything at all. They couldn't run the football, which is kind of the base of what they do. And if they can't run it, then, you know, the passes weren't there either. There was no protection. Nobody was getting open. They weren't running good passing concepts. Just a complete and utter disappointment. But again, a short week. I mean, there's always there seems to be, like, on those Thursday night games, one of the teams shows up and the other team really doesn't. Let's be honest. I think we should abolish
Thursday night games.
I think we should abolish Thursday night football. I think it's insanely stupid. But
or it
that's
should be something like it's the team the team is coming off a bye week or something.
Totally agree. Or they should have extra time to prepare, not just 3 or 4 days or whatever it is. So, yeah, I don't have much to add. I thought the Ravens defense played pretty well, to be honest with you. They really did a good job of holding the Dolphins in check. It was just, when the Ravens fall behind, my mind immediately goes to what they've been doing all season, which is, if they're down 1 or 2 scores, it ain't over till it's over sort of thing. And that's sort of where I went to throughout this, first half and second half, and it just never happened. So, credit to Dolphins. They came out, they had a really good game plan, and the Ravens had really no adjustments. So hats off to the Dolphins. And similar to what Dallas went through when they came off the bye week this past Sunday, I hope the Ravens do the same thing this weekend and dominate. We'll see what happens.
Carlos, any thoughts on this game?
Why the? Well, I didn't understand the Tua thing because they didn't let him start the game, yet they let him finish the game.
Yeah, so he
Jacoby
was.
Brissett was ready
I
to come
had
back
no
in.
clue. That made no sense to me either.
So he was active, and they said right before the game, they said he was the second string quarterback. It was like an hour before the game. He would be the backup, which I thought was strange.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, that's confusing.
yeah. I mean, not much to be said. I mean, I just credit the loss to really just it being a Thursday night. I don't think the Ravens really had a lot of time to prepare for the Dolphins. I think Harbaugh even said that he was like, we were not prepared for them.
Yeah.
It happens. It's a Thursday night game. I think the Ravens they're going to be fine. They'll be all right.
I hope
there's not much to worry about
because you know how positive I am.
All right, the next game, if there's anything we want to talk about in this game, the Cowboys over the Falcons 43-3.
Yeah, suck it haters for celebrating on the grave of the Dallas Cowboys just because they lost to Denver. We are alive and well, and we have proven we are still that team.
I mean, I really don't have much to say about this. I mean,
Yeah,
you damn right you don't have a lot to say. You damn right you don't have a lot to say, Kirby, because that's what a winning football team looks like, okay? Unlike your Washington football team, the team with no name. Oh, my God, you beat Tom Brady, and you guys act like you guys have a shot at the division. Not you, necessarily. I'm not saying you, okay? I know you're a realist, but I'm saying the fan base. From what I've been seeing, the fan base is like, oh, we have a shot at the division now. Yeah, you guys have no shot. Okay,
you won't see me tweeting that. You won't see me Facebooking that. I'm a realist.
That's the thing.
I'm a realist.
I would say for this game, I mean, when you look at that halftime score, the game was over at halftime. It was 36-3 at halftime. So, yeah, Dallas, I mean, they've just hung a nasty second quarter on the Falcons. And
put a nice little 40 burger on them, and I love it.
As you should. I hope my team does that against the Bears this weekend. I could see it happening, but no, this was a great bounce back win for Dallas and needed for sure after all the talk after 1 week. See, I that's what I also hate about this is I know this is supposed to be hurry up. This is just something real quick with sports media. Everything is dire after one game. We still have plenty of season left to go. Guys, we still have 7 more weeks left.
I think it was dire for at least it felt like that way with Dallas, and like I said, I'll make this quick. I think it was just it felt dire because of the way they lost and the way we looked, and how it kind of reminded us of how this team looked last season, losing games that we should have won. Not really. I know, yeah. I mean, but like again, like we have so much faith in, and I knew a loss was going to eventually come. I mean, remember my prediction was 13-4, so I still think they can lose 2 games, which one of them is coming up. But I mean, I think it's just because of how well we've seen this team play, seeing them come out like that after a bye week, and after the bye week, and after like that emotional, hard-fought win against the Vikings. I think that's why people were like, well, what the hell is going on with, like, what just happened? But they answered the bell. They answered the call. They answered the bell, and they look good.
I agree.
All right. Indianapolis over Jacksonville 23-17. Jacksonville trying to inch their way to yet another win. Trevor Lawrence 16 for 35, 162 yards. Carson Wentz 22 for 34, 180 yards. But Jonathan Taylor, what an impressive football game by the Colts running back in this game.
Yeah, Taylor stands out, but this was a typical AFC South game where it's sloppy, close but sloppy, and yeah.
I don't have a whole lot to say about this game.
Yeah.
All right. The Lions can never win, but they can lose and they can tie. The Lions and Steelers tie at 16.
This is the one time. This is the one time I'm okay with a tie happening, because most of the time I'm against ties. No team deserved to win this game. This was the worst game I've ever seen. In a long time. You know, this was awful, and I get Mason Rudolph off. Like, Mason Rudolph will never be a good quarterback in the NFL.
He's terrible. He's terrible, and the fact that, you know, it would look like throughout this game, they're driving. There'd be a turnover immediately. That turnover that Pittsburgh had that basically ended the game was just
terrible.
It made me so angry, and I can't stand Pittsburgh. I really can't. The funny thing is the Lions didn't have any turnovers. I had to double check that, but the Steelers had 3 and I think 2 fumbles. It was just a very, very sloppy game, and obviously, the weather.
The weather did not.
The weather played The weather played a factor in this game for sure. You can't deny that, but just it was an ugly, ugly, ugly game. I got nothing to say. It's supposed to be hurry up, and I'm yakking. Sorry.
Well, I have some good news. The Lions will not go winless this season.
Who the fuck cares? Okay, let's move on.
The Patriots stomping the Browns 45-7. I'm gonna say what Carlos says. Also, the Patriots are sneaky good.
They're not sneaky good anymore. They're
good.
They're just good.
They're good.
Okay.
They're finally figuring it out. This beatdown was so bad that they even took the game off of CBS and moved it over to the Saints Titans.
I know. I was going to say that too. I've never seen that in all the years I've watched football.
I've seen it a few times. They did it once. Fox did it once when the Cowboys were getting shellacked by the Rams, and we had like Brad Johnson in at quarterback.
Ooh, Brad Johnson.
Because Romo had gotten hurt. So, I would be afraid to play the Patriots. I would be very scared. Buffalo cannot feel comfortable. They can't feel comfortable.
Browns stink. Straight up, their defense
They're just hurt. They're so Baker. I understand Baker's on a contract year and all that, and he's trying to prove himself, and that's why he keeps coming out. But that dude is hurt, and he needs to sit down. He's hurting the team more than he's helping them right now.
Yeah, he's making them a lot worse. But yeah, they Patriots are scary. And you've seen Mac Jones sort of develop into this great quarterback too, really in the last month or so. It's Pats, like Carlos said. I wouldn't want to play the Pats right now. And I don't think anybody would. And Cleveland's done. They have, like Carlos said, they have a ton of injuries, but they've also just, when they've been healthier, they just also haven't performed and stepped up either. So, yeah, that's all I got.
The Bills over the Jets 45-17.
Skip.
Who cares?
Just
all
skip.
right.
Bills just laid the
Bills
lumber.
did what the Bills needed to do.
And by the way, Mike White is a dope. A dope for saying he should have been the first overall pick after 1 week. You know what? Karma's a bitch. He got what was coming to him. You suck. You suck, bro. Sit down.
Jesus Christ, okay.
I had a lot of anger for some reason for that particular...
Did. Who hurt you?
Mike White, apparently. Well, now, hey, Mike White, open the door to Joe Flacco. Let's go. Joe Flacco starting on Sunday.
Yes, Joe Flacco next week. Are you hyped for that, Dan?
I just hope he doesn't get killed. That's if he stays healthy, that's all I care about.
Anyway.
All right. The next game, the Cardinals get handed their second loss of the season by the Carolina Panthers, and Cam Newton is back.
Yeah, he touched the ball twice and scored on both those plays to start
just
the game.
Yelled, I'm back, I'm back. I was sort of imitating that.
We got it, Kirby. we understood the reference. You didn't have to explain it.
Okay.
Now you ruined the joke.
Is this just a slip-up game for the Cardinals, or are you guys concerned?
No, listen. Let's just put it this way. So the Cardinals, of course, didn't have Kyler Murray again. Here's the issue.
True.
The
Colt
Cardinals
McCoy is
are
their
only good.
backup. Colt McCoy. Sorry, go ahead.
So
Former
Colt McCoy
Washington
obviously
player.
led him to a victory against the 49ers, okay? This NFL season is so weird that, I don't really know how much stock you can put into that. But then we saw in this game against the Carolina Panthers, they didn't come out and play very well. My thing is, the reason why I personally don't fear the Arizona Cardinals and why if Dallas plays them, I'm not going to be, afraid like I would against, Green Bay or Tampa Bay. Or, I'm just afraid of the Bay, I guess. The reason why is because Kyler Murray is the seems to be the reason why this team performs well, right? But the problem is Kyler Murray's my size. He does not have a big body like other top-notch quarterbacks, so he gets hurt a lot. I mean, when was the last time he made it through a season healthy? We don't know. But we know when he's playing and he's healthy, he looks great. But he can't stay healthy. That's why I think the Arizona Cardinals just aren't going to make it that far in the playoffs. But I would attribute this just to, just they had the backup in. They had the backups in. They didn't really have all their star players playing.
I'm just amazed that Colt McCoy's still in the NFL. It's like you can't tell me that there's not a better free agent quarterback out there than Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy, really?
I mean, Cam Newton was out there. Why didn't Arizona sign Cam Newton?
God, it just makes me so angry. It's I don't know.
If I'm correct, Colt McCoy led the Washington football team to a victory over Dallas on Monday night. Am I correct?
Move on, Kirby, before I rip your team to shreds. Like, why do you always have to bring it back? Like, why?
I'm just saying.
Congratulations, a game that was played 5-6 years ago. Congratulations! Here's your prize, Kirby. Here's your prize. You had a Colt McCoy victory. But do you have anything else to show for that? No.
Washington fans can't remember playoff games because the last time they had a meaningful playoff run was in 1992. Way before Kirby was born. So they have to bring back like week 9 games from 2015, 2014, 2016 and bring them up. I'm just busting your chops, but it's true. It's true though. Come on.
Don't ever do that again.
This is the hurry up offense. I'm slowing us down.
How about
Kirby derailed us? Kirby derailed us with that.
Yes, I did. I'm sorry. Let's move on, gentlemen. Okay. How about another Washington quarterback, Kirk Cousins, throwing for almost 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, beating the Los Angeles Chargers? I'm very shocked by this game.
Yeah,
I was very shocked.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
And also Dalvin Cook had a great game, almost 100 yards rushing.
Oh, yeah.
It's weird. The Vikings had these games now and then where like Cousins just goes off and he looks like a Pro Bowl quarterback, but he'll come out next week and have an absolute and lay an egg. Yeah, this game was surprising, and the Chargers are kind of sputtering right now. They're not able to run the football at all. Herbert has really taken a step back from where he was just not too long ago, really. I think it's just a product of them being kind of a young team in general.
Agreed.
So I don't know if this is their season. But look, it's the AFC West.
It's still wide open. It's not like
that division's been very weird. Really, 3 out of the 4 teams I think have a chance to make the playoffs there.
I would only put 2. I think only the Chargers and the Chiefs have a shot. I think the Raiders. I think just there's too much to overcome, especially with the loss of, obviously Ruggs and their other. I still don't remember.
That's true. That's a great point.
So I think only the Chargers and the Chiefs really have a legitimate shot at making the playoffs from there.
I agree, but. Yeah, this game was surprising. But yeah, Eckler only had 44 yards, and he was their leading rusher.
Don't the Vikings play?
Puts a lot of pressure on a young quarterback to have to do everything, and Herbert's great, but he's just not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's not there yet. He needs help around him.
He needs his weapons around him to step up. That's it, because they've kind of fallen off.
Yep, agree.
All right. The Eagles over the Broncos 30-13.
Hey, don't count. The Eagles could actually make a run, not at the division, but at the wild card. I mean, Jalen Hurts is actually looking and Devontae Smith is also looking fantastic. Like,
yeah,
I'm not saying the Eagles are a threat to the Cowboys, because they're not. And plus, we don't play them until the last week of the season, which by then we'll have the division locked up and we'll probably just rest our starters. But, I mean, the Eagles could sneak into the playoffs.
Yeah, this game was interesting. Yeah, the Eagles pretty much dominated from start to finish, and you're kind of right. Jalen Hurts has really started to step into a nice role here. But again, it was the Broncos. The Broncos are a team in disarray. So let's take that for what it's worth too. We'll see. We'll see what happens when the Eagles get into these divisional games. Because that's just a really weird schedule, the way the NFC East kind of, finishes out the season where, it's all NFC East games, like the last 7-8 weeks of the season. So
I mean, there's a stretch where Dallas and Washington are going to play each other twice in 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks, yep. Yep.
It's going to be the best 3 weeks of my life.
All right. The next game, the Packers shut out Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, and Russell Wilson's return to the Seahawks after fracturing, spraining, whatever
his
he
middle
did
finger.
to his middle finger. Well, I mean, the doctor said his comeback was miraculous, but
he shouldn't have come back.
Yeah,
he shouldn't have come back.
I agree. I think he
not
wasn't
ready.
ready.
In that
yet.
game, especially not in that game, just considering weather conditions. It's cold, it's in Green Bay. Like, I don't know. I mean, also another thing is Pete Carroll and them are a bunch of stooges trying to say that, the reason that the refs were the reason why they lost. You guys didn't put up a single point.
I know.
Like, you guys lost seven. Isn't that ridiculous? And Aaron Rodgers is coming back from COVID. It's not like Aaron Rodgers had like a great game.
Yeah.
You guys just didn't do it. You guys didn't execute. You guys lost to, you guys just lost flat out. Like, you had an advantage. Aaron Rodgers is coming off the COVID list. He's not 100%. He didn't practice all week.
And he didn't play great either. I mean,
exactly.
Really didn't play
and then
great.
You're going to sit there and blame the refs for why? Like, what call specifically did not go your way?
The refs kept tripping Russell Wilson, causing him to be sacked. Yeah, it was a brutal game, and it pretty much puts the fork in the Seahawks, I think, as well.
It's definitely gonna be super hard for them to make the playoffs from here.
They're gonna have to win out. I mean, realistically, they're basically gonna have to go 11-6 or 10-7. There's really no other way around it. And the way Russell Wilson played, it's also a wonder if he didn't set himself back, his rehab back a little bit, even just kind of pushing the envelope a little bit. Maybe not, but yeah, I like I said at the top, he definitely should have sat out and made sure he was completely ready to go in rehab before he came back, because he didn't look comfortable. And obviously he hasn't played since, I mean, I don't know, what was he out, 7 weeks, something like that?
I don't remember how long it was.
I mean, he's been out since the early part of the season, so that plays a big factor too. So yeah, it was kind of a brutal game, to be honest. And Seattle's done, and they kind of did it themselves in a lot of ways, I think.
All right, the last 2 games, Sunday Night Football, the Chiefs over the Raiders 41-14.
And the home of the Chiefs.
There it is, every time.
And the 49ers over the Rams 31-10. My thoughts from this Chiefs-Raiders game: Deshaun Jackson needs to learn how to catch a football and
not learn how to catch a football and learn how to finish a play. Not catch. He knows how to catch. He just doesn't know how to finish the play.
He's ridiculous.
He has a history of that, believe it or not.
Yes, he does.
No, he did it against Dallas. But yeah, no, we've already touched on my thoughts kind of
Chiefs,
on the
Chiefs.
So there's not. I
don't have much to add either.
The Rams, though,
surprising. Well,
I mean, to an extent, surprising, but like at the same time, this is the first game Von Miller and OBJ are playing. I don't think they necessarily have, they haven't had a lot of time to really like build a repertoire with like their teammates. So I don't know. Just from what I saw, the Rams don't really scare me as much as people kind of made them out to be.
Not at all. They don't scare me in the slightest.
But we'll retouch on this conversation in a few weeks after OBJ and like Matthew Stafford have really had time to really build a a repertoire, have really build their chemistry, like the chemistry in their relationship, and then Von Miller, like how he fits more into this defense. That of course he's not really the star in anymore. That's Aaron Donald. So
it's Darnold, as Eli Manning calls him.
Yeah, I almost called him that now too, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, to me, it was more surprising. The 49ers, the way they just dominated the Rams. That was very impressive.
Yeah, and they were able to run the ball well. Deebo Samuel was fantastic. Garoppolo was great. And the defense. I mean, you talk about all the weapons the Rams have, and it was. Yeah, they shut him down. And look, OBJ only got targeted a couple times, so it's not like, people say, well, he's I don't know, he's a distraction or this and that and the other.
Which we have a proven track history that he is. It's just I don't think he's immediately happening here.
Yeah, but not in this game. I mean, Stafford just played poorly, and San Francisco's defense was all over the field. You got to give them credit where credit's due, and I think they're done. I think San Francisco's done.
They're still in it, especially with this win. They're still in it.
Yeah, I don't know though.
That's why we haven't done a cross-off segment lately, is because we can't necessarily cross many teams off right now.
Yeah, that is true.
It's pretty much a dead heap in a lot of these divisions, especially the West on both sides. Outside of Arizona, the South. It's just an interesting time to be alive, as the kids would say.
I mean, this is definitely going to go down as one of the best NFL seasons, but
yeah, I mean,
I agree.
We may have a team we may have a couple 10-7 teams win the division.
I think 9-8 for that last wild card spot.
I think for the wild card, I could definitely see 9-8. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, this has been the Hurry Up Offense. We'll take a quick break and wrap things up right after this.
Hey there, this is Mark Francis of Icon Real Estate. If you have any real estate needs in the Winchester surrounding area, including West Virginia, give me a call. I've got extensive experience, been in the business for almost 20 years, and would love to help you out. Track me down at Icon Real Estate, iconsells.com, or even give me a call, 540-247-1527. Again, Icon Sells, ICONSELLS.com. And I would love to chat with you and help you out. Give me a call.
All right, welcome back. Boys, what are we looking out for next week?
Oh, we already talked about it, the Carlos Bowl.
Yeah, Carlos Bowl and
the Ravens.
Just looking here. Yeah, Ravens bounce back, I think, for my personal choices. And then, I got a pretty good matchup out there in Los Angeles. The Steelers traveling out there. Will the Steelers bounce back? That's my question. I anticipate the Chargers winning that game by a couple scores, but I at least I hope that's what the final result is. But interesting to see that one for sure as well.
I'm interested to see what storylines will be told in the week leading up to Ron Rivera's return to Carolina, not just facing his former team, but once again, Cam Newton.
Yeah, that whole dynamic is interesting. The fact that Cam Newton just kind of came out of nowhere and went off last week. So I love to see it. I like Cam Newton, especially with the Panthers. They needed a spark.
He should have never left.
I agree. Yeah. They never should have hired Matt Rule either, but that's just my opinion. I think Matt Rule's not a great NFL coach.
All right, so Carlos is not with us next week, so we have one more mini segment just for Carlos to start, and myself and Dan will do this again next week. Carlos, Thanksgiving is coming up. I got to know one thing you're thankful for.
Damn.
God, country, and motherfucking football. You can bleep out the F word.
We got to find it.
Well, that's it. Once again, Carlos is not with us next week. Carlos, I cannot speak tonight. Carlos, I hope you and your family have a blessed Thanksgiving, sir. And as always, have some good turkey. Eat, watch some football.
I don't do turkey.
I don't blame you.
I do chicken. I do chicken on Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever
Chicken's
you do,
more tender.
I hope you have a happy, safe, and blessed Thanksgiving, brother.
Thank you. And same to you guys. I hope you guys have a fantastic Thanksgiving. We will definitely be talking since the Cowboys will be dominating the Las Vegas Raiders.
That's on Thanksgiving Day. So, yep, Dallas, Las Vegas, Thanksgiving Day. It's going to be
fun.
exciting. But Dan and I will be back with you next week. So look out for that. This has been another edition of the Kirby on Sports podcast. Thanks to Trumbull Insurance Agency, Regroup Building Services, PM Plus Reserves, Shenandoah Primitives, Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, and Mark Francis with Icon Real Estate. Check out anything and everything, the Kirby on Sports podcast at kirbyonsports.com. Until the next time you hear us, always remember to create greatness. So long and peace out.